Good afternoon, everyone. This is David Stearns from Haley Marketing, and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley webinar. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I actually saw just come up in a meeting this morning at a marketing director's roundtable, and that's how do you get your recruiters, your salespeople, your managers, your executives, how do you get them more involved in sharing on social media and the content that you're creating? So we're going to talk today about some of the data in the industry, some trends in social media, and a few best practices in how you can create and share content. Now, a word of forewarning. Usually, my PowerPoint instincts are to try to do pretty slides with very little text and to talk more about the subject matter than to have you reading while I'm talking. Well, in preparing for this presentation, there was a lot of content. And I thought the best way to convey it was actually to put more data into the slides. So good news, if you haven't already downloaded the slides, you can get them from lunchwithhaley.com. You're going to want a copy of the slides because there is so much good content written out in full detail in the slides today. All right, with that said, we will jump in. Oh, also, one last thing. If you do have questions, please don't be shy. Take advantage of that question window. I will do my best to try to keep up with questions as they come in and make sure that I answer everything and anything I miss. I'll stick around afterwards and make sure that we get to before we conclude today's webinar. All right, so let's talk about team social sharing. So, as I mentioned, we're going to start with some data. So I was curious in preparing for this presentation, just how busy are the social networks? What's going on? What are the usage trends? How are people taking advantage of the capabilities of social media? And I found a fantastic website that had statistics on anything you could dream about on social media. And I want to share some of what I found. So we're going to start with Facebook. And we're going to start with Facebook because it's the biggest. 2.89 billion monthly users. I know a lot of people in staffing and recruiting will say, my audience is only on LinkedIn. With this many people that are on the platform every single month, your audience is on Facebook. At some time during the month, your audience is on Facebook. It may not be 100% of your audience, but people you want to reach are using this platform. 69% of all the adults in the world are on Facebook. 74% of high income earners use Facebook, even a larger percentage than all adults. So 3/4 of managers, executives, business owners are on Facebook. On average, people access Facebook 8 times per day. Yeah, we're not only using Facebook in large numbers, we're using it the most frequently of any social media platform. People are using it like Google to do searches, 2 billion searches every month. It's a massive number of people looking for information, looking for companies, looking for individuals, looking for products, looking for services, looking for jobs on Facebook. Thinking about the types of content, video, does it matter? Should I be doing things like uploading video or Facebook Live? Well, it gets 59% more engagement when you're including video, and I know probably up till 6 months ago, I was like most of you, and the thing I liked least in the world was when somebody stuck a camera in my face. Well, now having been on camera every single day for 6 months, it's not so hard. So I think adding more video to your communication on Facebook is becoming a must. So this is an interesting stat. I had never seen this one before. It takes 7 to 13 or more touches to get a viable lead. Now, this isn't just staffing. This is across all businesses. But if you think about making an impression, we tend to think about, well, I put my post out there. How many people liked it? How many people engaged? How many people visited my website? It's not going to be one thing. It's going to be a combination of things. It's going to be consistency. It's going to be repetition. In advertising, there always has been an adage that you have to hit people 7 to 21 times till they have any sort of recollection that they've seen your ad. And on social media, it's just the same. It's multiple touches to get people to know who you are, to create awareness, to get them to understand what you do, to create some sort of impression or positioning for your organization, and then to get people a reason to take action. The best time to publish appears to be between 9 and 11 p.m. Eastern time, but it says seem to be the best because as soon as you publish at best time, somewhere everybody starts posting at that time and it no longer is the best time because there's too much noise. So you want to be testing different hours of the day to do your Facebook sharing. Gen Z, 60% wish they could communicate with businesses more via messaging on Facebook. Are you monitoring your messaging, or has it become a black hole for applications and questions that nobody checks? Or maybe you check it once a month and go, oh, look at all these people who sent us a message and we didn't respond. That's terrible for your service. If you're going to have a Facebook page, you need to have somebody in the office monitoring it just to see, are people communicating with us? The more you are, the more you're going to create engagement and a positive experience with that younger audience. B2B decision makers spend 760 minutes per week on Facebook. That's a massive amount of time, and you're gonna see the LinkedIn stats. That's way more than they spend on LinkedIn. 43% of B2B marketers name Facebook as their most important advertising channel. That's not business to consumer, that's business to business marketers. People like you. 43% of it named Facebook as their most important. So as a percentage of the grand total, Facebook was number one. It wasn't over 50%. There's lots of others that matter, but it was the biggest. Adding a call to action button to your Facebook ads boosted clicks by 2.85 times. Almost 3 times more clicks by having a call to action button. And we know that from marketing on websites, marketing on social. When you tell people what to do with a good call to action and you make it easy for people to take action with a button, you get more clicks. It's common sense, but are you doing it in your Facebook marketing today? How about Instagram? I know a lot of staffing companies are experimenting with Instagram. Some are doing things quite regularly. Most don't seem to have a real big Instagram strategy. Well, Instagram has 1 billion users a month. The biggest demographic are 18 to 24-year-olds, and 95% of Instagram's users are less than 35. So if I want people early in their career, this is a place to reach them. The average user spends 17 minutes a day on the app. That doesn't seem like a huge amount of time, but 17 minutes is enough to get through their feed and everything that's new and like a few pictures, share a few things. If you can get them to follow you, if you can get them to share your content. Posts that include another handle, tagging people, get 56% more engagement. So who are your, we're going to talk later about influencers and micro-influencers. Who are your micro-influencers you can be tagging? Your recruiters, your salespeople, maybe your temps. Again, video works. Here it's 21.2% higher engagement than photos. So that same video you're putting on Facebook can be shared on Instagram, maybe with some different messaging around it. This was really surprising to me. I thought Instagram was just friends sharing pictures, but 80% of Instagram users follow at least one business. And 72% have made a product purchase after seeing it on the app. Are they seeing your company? Are you advertising there? Are they seeing the kinds of jobs you offer? Are they seeing the services you provide? How-to videos are the most popular form of Instagram content. So what are you teaching your clients how to do? What questions do they ask you that you're answering through video on Instagram? This one is not really relevant to what most people in staffing are doing, but a lot of companies pay Instagram influencers, people who have a big audience, they pay them to share their content or to be tagged in their content or to like their content. And the price, the going rate is between $100 and a little over $2,000 to have an influencer share your post. LinkedIn. Okay, this is where most of us spend all of our time, especially on the B2B side. Well, 303 million monthly users. Great number. It's big. Less than a third of Instagram. About a tenth of what Facebook has. This one might be surprising. 57% are using it on mobile. So is your content really designed for mobile? And particularly when you're driving people to your website, is the web experience going to be great on mobile? 20 million open jobs. So making your job stand out on LinkedIn is going to be a real challenge. You got to make sure you're writing it with a great job title, great what's in it for me benefits at the beginning of the job. You have to be selling to make your job stand out amongst 20 million. But here's the big reason we all use LinkedIn. 91% of executives are using it as their first choice for professionally relevant content. So when you want to create a brand impression about being professionally relevant, this is the place to be sharing. 2 million posts, articles, and videos published every day. It is not easy to stand out, so you really need to be in touch with your audience. Later, we'll talk a little bit about segmentation and how you make sure that you're providing the right content to the right audience at the right time to get more value out of what you're doing on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. Only 1% of users post content weekly. So if you're a regular LinkedIn user sharing content, you're automatically in the top 1%. And most users spend 17 minutes monthly on LinkedIn. And somebody asked the question, where did I get all this data from? And I apologize, I should have put the source here as a footnote. I'm gonna have to look it up afterwards. I don't remember the website I found it on. It's a website that tracks data on social media, and they just went site by site by site with all these statistics. It was basically a Google search I did to prepare for this presentation. Here's an interesting one. Companies that post 20 times per month reach at least 60% of their unique audience. So if you are attempting to get to the people who follow your company, it takes a lot of posting, 20 times a month to reach roughly 2/3 or 60% of the audience through regular posting. If you're not doing regular posting, you're probably not getting to the people who are following you. Links to YouTube play directly in LinkedIn feed and have a 75% higher share rate. So if you're posting videos somewhere, YouTube's a great place to host it because it will natively play in LinkedIn, which LinkedIn likes. InMail, expensive, but it gets 300% higher response rate than traditional email. So if you're paying for any of LinkedIn's products, you want to be taking advantage of InMail. If you're not paying for products, you want to be building your network by connecting to people and using the messaging app in LinkedIn to reach out to people because your likelihood of a response is 3 times that of just sending an unsolicited email. 80% of B2B leads coming from social media are from LinkedIn because that's where most business-to-business companies are spending their time and investing their resources. Not sure it's just because LinkedIn's more responsive, it's more that's where the budgets are going. And HubSpot did a study and found that traffic from LinkedIn generated the highest visitor to lead conversion rate at 2.74%. So in plain English, when somebody goes from LinkedIn to your website and becomes this lead, the best conversion rate happens to those leads because they're going to be the most qualified, but it's still a low percentage at 2.74%. So you need to do as much as possible to maximize the volume of traffic you get because the conversion rate, you're not going to do anything that's going to suddenly make that 20 or 30% conversion rate. It's always going to be relatively low. So with social media, we need a fairly high number of people visiting our website. How about Twitter? We've had a real mixed relationship with Twitter over the years, but it does have 330 million monthly users. Here, though, it's an older demographic. Almost 2/3 are between 35 and 65. Tweets with images get more clicks, more likes, more retweets. Direct messaging campaigns are 300% more effective than email. So again, just like LinkedIn, when we used the messaging built into the social media and we're connecting with people who are active on that social media, we get a great response. Here's a challenge. A tweet has a lifespan of about 18 minutes before it's buried by new tweets. Companies that use Twitter for customer service see a 19% lift in customer satisfaction because it's a great place to be listening to customers when they're having challenge. Are your temps having trouble finding their way to work? Are they having an issue on the job? Twitter is just another channel they may want to use to communicate with you because they can pull out their phone and they can do it relatively painlessly if they've got an issue. 93% of brand follows on Twitter plan to buy from that brand. So when you get someone following your company, they're intending at some point to apply with a job from you or to do business with you. They're really interested in you. Okay, so that's the data. Next, we're going to look at a lot of the trends in social media and some of the best practices that companies are implementing for 2020. And this is where I'm going to warn you, there's a lot of content on the slides. Again, broke all my rules. This slide you're looking at follows my rules. The next one and the next 10 or so do not, but lots of good information. All right, not a secret here, but the social is about connection, community, and experience. So you're really thinking about, how do I use social media to provide a better client experience, a better candidate experience? How do I deepen relationships with people I know? How do I create talent communities? Um, Somebody just asked me about TikTok. Yeah, that site I mentioned did have information on TikTok. You've actually got something coming up here, but there wasn't a lot of information relevant to what staffing companies are doing from the TikTok stats. All right, according to Search Engine Journal, this year social media is about going back to the basics. And what that means, it's understanding your audience. What are their needs, interests, and challenges? What a job seeker needs has changed. It's changed because of the economy. For people unemployed, it's harder to find work. Or maybe unemployment pays more than employment. Safety is now an issue. Whoever thought wearing a mask to work was something we would do here in America? And now it's the norm if you're going to work at all. Remote work. Many companies said no way. Now they all have to say yes way. So the needs, interests, and challenges have changed, but it's not just about business and just about jobs. How about working parents? What are they facing now that we are back to school? How about retirees who are worried that their savings have been eroded by the ups and downs of the stock market? Now they're doing better now, but who knows what's to come? So you need to think about your audience in much deeper terms to understand what kind of content are they going to want to see, and start to build your content plans around those needs, interests, and challenges. It's not about you, it's about them. What are you offering to people on social that they will value? Not just a job, not just information about your staffing services, but information that they need to get by in their lives. They need to advance their careers. They need to keep themselves, their families safe. If you're creating a talent community, what makes them want to be part of your community? How can you connect on a more human level? Because people are inundated with information from social media, from email. We're all Zoom meeting out, and I appreciate that you're all here watching a webinar very much. But if you're going to create a talent community, maybe you're in IT and I want a community of the developers who I most want to place. Why do they want to be part of it? How can I connect with them on a more personal level to help them deal with their challenges managing their careers? If I deal in healthcare and I've got a lot of nurses I'm trying to build a community with, how do my recruiters who manage that community make more one-to-one connections, really show interest in the people of the community? It's back to basics. It's what salespeople and recruiters always did when they talked to people on the phone and when they met in person, but now we're bringing it to social. Trust is a big deal. People won't do business, with organizations they don't trust. We've all heard the phrase fake news over and over and over again. And this is not a political discussion. I promise to go nowhere near that. But we're tired of seeing things that we don't know the source. We don't know if it's real. And with an election cycle, there's going to be more information and disinformation than ever. It's going to be a lot of fatigue in the next few months. Your employees, your temporary workers, your full-time people, one of the things that they want in 2020 is to work for organizations that take a stance on social issues. Are you a force in building a more equitable world? That matters to people. So you want to be explaining to your own internal team members, explaining to your temporary employees, your contractors, the things that you're doing. In some instances, you may want to take a stance in a private network to your talent community so they know what's going on. In other places, you may want to be very public. A lot of this depends on the customers you serve, the candidates you serve. And I know in staffing, it's really hard because you're going to serve clients who are on both sides of the political aisle. And even if you say something completely innocuous, someone will take it the wrong way. But at the same time, you define your positioning by what you're known for, and trust in today's world is about organizations that are taking a stand. So where do you want to draw your line in the sand and take a stand? Candidates are driven to brands that stand for something. They're driven to consumer brands that do social good. A lot of staffing companies, probably your company, does social good. How do you make sure that it's known? How do you celebrate the things you're doing to help your community, to help your candidates? You want to show off your company's mission and core values in your social content, not just to state them, but use pictures, use video to demonstrate them. And sometimes we get uncomfortable about tooting our own horn. But you know what? That's the only way that horn gets tooted is if you show, hey, check us out, the volunteer work we were doing. We're so happy. We put 100 people to work last week. Here's the story of Jim, and we helped Jim get off of unemployment and get a paycheck for his family. Show those values you have, show the good you're doing in your social content. And you want to get everyone involved in the organization. It makes a huge impact, and we'll talk more about that at length later. This is where you also want to look at building an ambassador program. An ambassador could be your internal employees or even your temporary workers. When we get more into the team-based sharing, the subject of today's presentation, we're going to talk about how to get more people involved in sharing content that is reviewed, approved, and you're happy that it's going out under your brand. Then there's niche marketing and micro influencers. And I listened yesterday to a presentation by Neil Patel, and some of you may know him. He's kind of a digital marketing guru, really known for his expertise in SEO and social media. And he really talked about the fact that, number one, your marketing today needs to be omnichannel, meaning it's not just one platform, it's not just email, it's not just social, it's not just YouTube, it's got to be everything, because there's so much content out there that you need to know your audiences and be looking for places you can make small little improvements with specific audience segments. Those are the niches. Then you can be looking at people who are well connected in those small groups and getting them on board to share content, to like your content, to help promote your brand. Those are your micro influencers. So this is about market segmentation. That's the marketing ease in this. But basically saying, here's the clearly defined audiences we normally sell to, the types of decision makers. Here's our HR audience. Here's our hiring manager audience. Here's the purchasing audience or the frontline supervisor. And on the candidate side, here's the fresh out of college. Here's the person re-entering the workforce. Here's the recent retiree. When thinking about your audiences, you can do things that you can't do in advertising that might be considered discriminatory. You're not going to do that to discriminate. You're going to do that to understand the audience so that as you work through your content, you're providing content that is relevant, that is interesting, that is useful to each of those smaller audience groups. This is about creating personas where you understand the profiles and personalities of each of the audiences, and you create content with the right message for the right people at the right time because you really know what's going on. You know, if you've got multiple recruiters and you've defined 3, 4, or 5 different personas for the candidates you place, assign each recruiter to becoming an expert in that persona. Ask them to do research, to study. What kinds of things could you produce content around? What would be of interest to the audience? Maybe you can get them on the team to help focus on curating that kind of content for your organization. And then look for influencers, people who are well known and well connected to help spread your content. Or those micro influencers. Maybe they don't have huge online followings, but they're really engaged, or their audiences are really engaged. You look at them and you see everything they share tends to get lots of likes, lots of comments. There's a gentleman on LinkedIn who's, you may know him as the Staffing Shark. He asked me to be on his show tomorrow. And I said, I'm booked tomorrow. He said, great, we got time today. He's one of those micro influencers. He doesn't have a huge following, but when he shares on LinkedIn, he gets tons of comments. He's created a great brand for himself as the Staffing Shark by focusing on building a really targeted audience on LinkedIn as a platform. That's an example of a micro influencer. And in my case, he's got an audience that's people I'm interested in communicating with. So I'm more than happy to be involved in helping him develop content for his own marketing. All right, this is a big trend change, is the social networks don't ever want you to leave. And they want you to start on their network and stay on their network. Basically, they're rewarding activities that keep people in the network, and they're, I wouldn't say penalizing, but they're not showing content as much to stuff that drives people away. So in the past, all of the content sharing strategy was about getting people to go back to your website. And then once they're on your website, that's like your home turf and you can engage with them there. Now, it's a little bit more about how can I work with people while we're on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram? Can I use comments to start discussions? Can I use direct messaging or the chat features? Can I look at creating more direct response with paid social? I need to think about new ways. Now, it's not that we're never trying to get people back to the website. We absolutely are, because They're not going to apply for a job. Well, they could on Facebook or LinkedIn, but most times we'd rather have them do it on our website so the data goes into our ATS. So we're going to think more about a balance of things we do on social media that will create lots of engagement, getting a more active audience, and then getting them back to our website to take actions. Then there's public versus private engagement. And this is something we really hadn't thought about at all before, is everything we were doing was in the public. I'm putting up something that's going to show in people's news feeds. Now, the social pundits of the world, and a lot of our digital team in Haley Marketing are saying, think about private channels of communication, private messaging, using messaging apps directly. Slack is one of them that we've been experimenting with to create private communities or one-to-one conversations so you can discuss things that are not public. One-to-one, you can discuss things that may be sensitive, or one to a group, you can really openly share best practices. You might do private channels for customer service so that only you see what's being said, or for consulting where you're providing really good advice to a group of people and they're going to feel special because you invited them to the private group. Or as I mentioned, a place one-to-one to ask those more personal questions. How about bots? Do you have a bot on your website so that you can answer basic questions 24/7? Or on social media, do you have a bot in Facebook to automate messaging? Now, there are AI-based bots that can do more complicated things like schedule interviews. They're great tools. For most staffing companies, they're kind of cost prohibitive. And I shouldn't say kind of. Like, they start at $50,000 to $100,000 a year. They're very cost prohibitive. But for most staffing companies, there are scripted bots that can handle basic questions. They can figure out, hey, are you looking for jobs? Are you looking to hire? What kinds of people? Let me get you to the right person. Let me get you to the right place on our website to answer your questions. How about augmented reality and virtual reality? So there's some really cool things going on. Those of you who use Snapchat, have kids who use Snapchat, you've probably seen those funny filters that can be added to pictures. They've been around for years. And today, more big brands are starting to experiment with augmented reality. And augmented means you take reality, and sort of the picture in the bottom right, you're looking through your phone, soon to be looking through glasses, and overlaid on top of the real world is something virtual. Now, maybe it's fun, like playing a game, you're hunting for Pokemon. But maybe it's serious, like I'm looking at a building and I see information on all the employers in that building and who's hiring. I look at a person, this is the one I want, and up comes their LinkedIn profile with their name and background so that I don't forget it when I'm at a conference and it's the 700th person I've met. That's coming in the world of augmented reality. Facebook now has Facebook Spaces, where if you're using virtual reality, those big goggles you put over your eyes and ears, 3 people can interact using a VR device. And if we've got Zoom fatigue, this may be the next thing where we can all go into VR. And now it's really like we're sitting in a room together. And that may sound like science fiction, but it's here today. I have a kid who's studying video game design. And he bought a VR setup for himself so he could start playing with it, start learning it. And he's like, Dad, you got to try this. And I'm not a gamer. Yeah. He threw the headset on me. I jumped into this silly game and I was blown away. I was in this world. And then he took me to see like a Cirque du Soleil performance because he knows I'm a Cirque fan. And I wasn't sitting in the audience. I was in the middle of the stage. And I was closer up than when I'm at a live performance. And I had stereo headphones listening to the music. And I'm looking in 360 degrees, seeing the performers. It was a mind-blowing experience. Better than a real-world experience. That's coming. So in staffing, that has not impacted us yet. But how's it going to alter how you recruit, how you screen talent, how you interact with one another once we have this augmented and virtual reality? I saw that Facebook, in one of those websites where insiders give away information on stuff Facebook doesn't, or excuse me, not Facebook, Apple doesn't want you to know about, that they're saying 2022 is the last year they're going to produce a new phone as a handset. I don't know if this is true or false, but the theory is they're going to switch to glasses as an interface and hand gestures. So you're going to wear your iPhone on your eyes. And now everywhere you're looking, they can augment with information. You're going to have a computer screen, and it was Google Glass that failed. But that's where the future is in augmented reality. It's going to change our world. It's going to change. You could go so far as using facial recognition. I'm walking down the street and my glasses are identifying candidates. That's coming. A friend of mine is selling equipment right now to take people's temperatures. Okay, so it does it at scale. It's a machine you install. It uses facial recognition to identify the people. It takes their temperature, and it notifies human resources of anybody who's running a temperature as 1,000 people walk into the building. That kind of technology is going to change how people hire and how we recruit. The nice thing about remote work is virtual reality is going to make interviews. I can do completely normal face-to-face interviews from anywhere. I can be working with a manager from anywhere. We've already seen a lot of it in the last 6 months, but even more is to come. And what I want you thinking about with this AR/VR is not what to do Monday morning, but what you're going to do in 2021, 2022, when these technologies come online and you start to think about being on the leading edge of being a more progressive staffing organization. Localization becoming more prevalent. Just like local SEO, local content for social media matters. People want to see social that's near them. So you can geotag your content, finding ways to make your content more relevant, like when you're putting a picture on Facebook. You can actually mark where it is. You can check in with every photo. So you're making that content localized, and when it's localized, it's more likely to be seen by people in that local market. So if I'm doing Facebook across multiple branches, I want my branches having content they can tag in their community. So if they've got their own local Facebook page, now it's more relevant to people near them. They're going to be better at recruiting. And when you're doing promotions, I know we're sort of limited because we're in the employment special category, but we can target audiences from people using IP addresses. So we can geo-target. Unfortunately, the range is no longer as tight, but we can at least try to make the post relevant to, I think it's a 9-mile radius, fairly big radius, but it's going to be a town, a city, that we can make sure that we're showing our ads in the right place so we can get people to the job site. And small companies can use targeting to attract people from further away. Maybe you want to do remote recruiting. So now I can geo-target a city where I don't have an office to try to go after candidates in specific skill disciplines based on where they are, not where I am. Big companies are making their content more relevant in specific locations, and small companies are using it to get access to those locations. Okay, here's my TikTok slide. TikTok's rise has been meteoric. It's been incredible. And I didn't bother putting up the data because I don't know what's going to happen. But there's 800 million users spending 46 minutes a day. That's, if you're doing the math, almost triple Instagram. Watching 15-second videos. It's a very young audience in general. And there's been giant questions because it's owned by a Chinese company. What's going to happen with it? Microsoft's looking to buy TikTok. The US government has said, you got to pay us a fee if you want to buy TikTok. Who knows what's going to happen? But what we can learn from this is that people, especially our kids, younger generations, want a place they can play, be creative, and share. And they're doing this for entertainment, but that entertainment is going to lead to the business world. They still want, we all want, a place where we can play, be creative, and share. How do we bring jobs to that world? They want content that's both authentic and, sadly, a soundbite level of depth. So if you want to engage your audience on social media, not just TikTok, we got to think more about showing real people doing real things. Mastering converting our messages to relevant, visually compelling sound bites. Pictures, videos that are interesting to our niche audiences, those micro groups that we're trying to go after, but getting it down to that soundbite level of depth. And a lot more video in our marketing to build community so people see themselves in what we're sharing. They feel like they're part of the team because they just keep seeing us so many times, and they see our temporary workers and they see our internal employees like, I like these people. I like what they share. I want to be one of them. That's what big brands have always tried to do with mass media advertising, make you want to be like the star they show. The person with the perfect skin and the perfect attire. Well, you're doing the same thing, but you want to be real. You don't want to be the perfect skin, perfect attire unless that's what your business looks like. I know I don't. But I want people to follow us who like what we stand for, who like what our organization does, who, in our case, believe in sharing ideas, believe in producing content. What does your business stand for? Create those TikTok kinds of moments around your mission, your vision, and your core values. I can't really do a talk on trends in social media without talking about paid, because paid has become more and more important. Organic reach has been declining for years and it just keeps getting worse. If the goal of your social marketing is to drive conversions, you need to be thinking about performance marketing, and that's PPC or paid advertising. That's when you're thinking about how do I promote my content to the right audience at the right times to maximize the number of people who see it and then take action. Whether that action is to click on it, to visit your website, just to simply like, share, comment on it. The most effective social marketers are experts who understand how to build a brand through organic content, how to connect with their audience, everything we've been talking about so far, and they're performance marketers who can optimize ads to maximize impact, reach, and conversion. I mean, even on our team, we've had to build a whole team to have this PPC expertise. They're different skills, and in your organization, you need one or multiple people who can bring those skills together to make your social marketing as effective as it can be. Paid social is not just about conversion. It should be also about strengthening your brand. And I personally have to get this one through my head. I'm so much about ROI. If I spend X dollars, I need a multiple on X to justify my existence. I'm probably never going to completely change my mindset there, but one of the other things that's important is you're building a brand, and in the long term, that effort creates brand preference and reduces price resistance. So the more people see you over time, they might not buy from you today. And every post on LinkedIn may not drive tons of conversions, but the consistency of your effort, the continuity over a long period of time, and continuity in how you present your organization, that makes people want to work with you. It shows people you're good at what you do. It shows people you're a likable company. And people will go out of their way to do business with companies they like, individuals they like, and they'll spend more money doing it. It'll be less about what's your markup and more about how can I be part of supporting an organization like yours. And I've said it a couple times, one more point here, video's importance continues to rise. As TikTok has taught us, consumers love video, so do social sites. People are watching incredible amounts of video on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And when you share video, the social sites are more likely to show that video to your followers. The algorithms they use increase the distribution when you share video over when you share pictures, and even more so over when you share just text. You need to find easy, low-cost ways to produce video, to tell your story, to convey your value. But the use case in the staffing industry for video is humongous. You can go live video, showing clients' work sites when they'll let you do that. So candidates really know what they're stepping into. You're providing better information to the candidate about what to expect, better orientation. Maybe that's public or maybe it's a private channel. You're doing educational events through live video where you're training. I've watched more Facebook live events in the last 6 months than I have since Facebook was launched, or even since Facebook Live came out as a way to share. Video on social is enormous, and it gets tons of engagements during the live event. How about testimonials and case studies? A great way to capture feedback from your clients. Maybe they don't want to write a written testimonial, so you can use an iPhone to get a video testimonial really easily, to do a video case study. I actually was at lunch today, and we were checking out one of the videos. Thank you, Sheriff, for producing a video. We have new people who joined our team this week, and we used a case study video testimonial tool to have them introduce themselves to everybody on the team. And that tool just asked 3 questions, and they answered on video, and it was awesome seeing those videos and getting to meet somebody and that person being introduced to our team of 50 people through this quick little video. I can't wait to do more with clients so I can learn more about them as well. You can do micro thought leadership through short videos, 1, 2, 3 minute. Our very own Matt Lozar does a lot of his minute videos where he talks about recruitment marketing on LinkedIn. And the authentic video, show off your company culture, show off what you're having fun with. Let people see what it's really like, not just to work directly in your company, but where your temps go to work and what their lives and jobs are like. Again, where your clients give you permission. All right, there was a question about what video platforms. We're going to get to some of the tools that we use in Haley Marketing in a little bit, so I'll show that to you. The next trend is to look at user-generated content. Everybody has wanted to have more content created by our end users, by our team members. So if you're struggling to come up with ideas for blogs, videos, and social content, get your clients and candidates involved. Get all of your recruiters and salespeople involved. Get people to tell their stories. That's the beautiful thing about what's happened with everyone being remote is we're used to telling stories on Zoom. We're used to talking on Zoom. Why do people love to temp? Have a Zoom call and ask them that question and just chat for 5 minutes. How ABC staffing changed my life. Did you really help somebody make an impact to their family? That's a phenomenal story to tell. Get that on video. On the client side, talk about the impact you made for your clients and their businesses. You know, very often when we ask staffing users, for feedback or for a testimonial, they'll say, well, I really like working with Jane. Jane was an awesome recruiter. That's a great testimonial. But it's an even better testimonial that says, I really liked working with Jane because she was with ABC Staffing, and the impact of my business was we cut turnover by 20%. We're getting so much better talent now that we're working with ABC Staffing. So those are the kinds of things you would love to get a little story with your happiest clients. Let's talk, let's record it, let's turn it into a video. How do you get them to do it? Ask them. It's not that hard. Maybe hold a contest. Give people a reward for submitting a video. Interview people with tools like Zoom. We did one internally yesterday. Mandy Witchen, who heads up our content area, she interviewed me because we're testing out an idea. And it was such a fun experience being on the interviewee end of that process. And at the end of it, we had a 12.5-minute recording, 3 really solid tips, at least I hope they were solid, on how to grow sales and how to improve recruiting in this environment that we can then turn into a full-length video, we can turn into a blog post, we can turn into multiple social videos from that Zoom recording. Video Now, hey, pardon the plug here, is a tool we have that we sell, and it specifically does video email, video case studies, video testimonials, and short brand videos. And the thing I liked about it, the reason this is actually a product we purchased to white label, is that it's so easy to use. And that's the one we used internally when people are doing the Meet Me videos on our team is you type in the 3 questions, send them an email, they answer them on their phone, and we have a beautifully produced video at the end, complete with logos that are animated, complete with music in the background. And I don't know how to do any video editing. We've got some talented people on our team who do, but we don't have to interrupt them to ask them to make those videos. That's one of the tools. I'll share some more tools later besides Video Now that we use for video. And lastly, in this section, stop being boring. We're all guilty of it. I've been guilty of it. I know Haley Marketing for some clients occasionally has been guilty of it, but we need to be more fun. We need to be more engaging. We need to be bolder. The good news is people are spending 200% more time on social media during this pandemic. The bad news is there's probably 300 or maybe 500% more crap in our feeds. So how can you stand out? Again, be authentic. People like real content. Tell stories people want to hear, see, and read by knowing those personas. More thumb-stopping imagery. Get bold visuals that you're using. Things that are fun and engaging, that are just different. There's nothing wrong with using stock photos. Just pick different styles and then overlay them with some text to really make them stand out. Answer the questions. This may be the single most important thing you do. Start recording all the questions your clients and candidates are asking you and use social media to answer those questions. Be that constant stream of education. And have fun. Just use social media as a platform to be a real person and not be stiff and corporate. So many companies are afraid to show personality, and social is a great place to do it. Oh, and remember, one more time, social media is about them, not you. So put yourself in the shoes of the client or candidate going through social media and think about what would they find interesting. And if you're not sure, next time you're talking to them, just to have a casual conversation about how they use social, what things they tend to look at, what things they get their most attention. All right, now, last 15 minutes, we're going to really get into the importance of doing all of this stuff with team-based sharing. So today's reality is social media platforms are constantly changing their algorithms, and it's impacting what users see in their feeds, and it's not a good news for company pages or brands. Posts from family and friends are prioritized over company posts. Organic reach on Facebook has dropped to less than 2%. In other words, if you have 100 people following your company page, 2 or less are going to see something you share organically. LinkedIn has stopped showing content to anyone who isn't a first level connection. They used to show it to second and thirds, not anymore. So what are you going to do? Option 1, pay to play. And this should be part of the strategy. Most companies are integrating paid content in with organic content. You're not going to stop doing organic. You're going to do a little more paid to make sure it's getting to the right audience. You're going to test what kinds of things do our audience react to. And the nice thing about paid is you can find out very quickly if the paid has an impact. And if so, you can do more of that kind of content. If the paid's not really getting an impact, good news is you're not spending any money because they're not clicking on it. The bad news is, or maybe it's more good news is, you just know what kind of content you don't need to produce. Then you can do team-based social sharing or employee advocacy. It may be one of the best ways to maximize your reach, because while shares from companies may have been downgraded on social sites, shares from individuals have been prioritized. So when the people who work for you, again, your executives, your branch managers, your salespeople, your recruiters, even your temporary associates, when they're sharing your content, it's going to reach a bigger audience. It's going to reach more of the people they're connected to. And if they're building their networks all the time, you're really increasing your reach. So what does it really make sense? What is the case? 84% of consumers value recommendations from family and friends over all other forms of advertising. So if you want to build trust, make sure people are talking about you, sharing your content. Even if they're just sharing educational content, it builds trust in your organization. This blew me away. Leads developed through employee social marketing convert 7 times more frequently. Say that again. When your people share your content, 7 times more response, conversions happen than when your company shares content, because of that natural trust people have with other people. It also gets 8 times more engagement, those likes, those shares. So your content goes to your people share it, it goes to their friends, family network, who may go to share it with others. You get this domino effect of it going from one group to the next group to the next. Sales reps who use social media as part of the sales process, not just in connecting on LinkedIn, and please don't, not just to connect on LinkedIn and send a sales pitch. Ugh, I hate those. But they use content, they connect, they share authentic and valuable information. They outsell 78% of their peers. And 79% of companies said they get more visibility after implementing team-based sharing, and 65% we get more brand recognition. So if one of your goals is to be more aware to your audience, well, you're going to get a lot more awareness in the marketplace by getting your team involved. And it's going to go a lot further. When your employees share content, it goes 561% farther than when your company shares content on its own. And this is kind of a neat one. People who are involved in social sharing in your organization, it makes them happier with their jobs. They're more likely to stay working for you. Just because you're making them part of sharing the brand, it reinforces what they feel about the organization. It reinforces your company values. It reinforces the reason they came to work for you in the beginning, which increases employee retention. So how do companies use team-based social sharing? There's a few different things: brand health and awareness, sales lead generation, employee branding and recruiting, personal branding, employee training and knowledge sharing. So lots of different use cases. So brand health is about, do we share content about how we want to be seen as an organization? The lead gen, are we doing things for direct response that bring people back to our website, maybe offering content to download? Employment branding, are we showing off what it's like to work for our organization? Are we showing off the clients we work with? I know most staffing companies don't want to do that, but part of your brand is defined by your clients. Do you work with great companies? Show it off as much as you can. That will attract more candidates to you, more of the right candidates. How about personal branding? Your salespeople, your recruiters should be building strong personal brands on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, particularly the first two. Because the stronger their brands are, the more people want to work with them. And because, as I said earlier, people do business with people, better engagement happens when people are sharing with people. That when your team members are creating personal brands, it's dramatically improving your sales and your recruiting efforts. And then even internally, if you've got a distributed team, social media is a great place to share company knowledge, whether it's in a private community, we use Slack internally all the time to share information, or publicly. You're sharing it with yourselves, but making it available to others. How do you be successful at this? There's been some questions about how do I get started? Well, okay, pardon again, self-promotion. We're going to talk about Net Social, but if you missed our product demo last month, this is a tool we created specifically to automate team-based social sharing. But some other keys to success. Produce better content and lots of it. The biggest winners on social media are doing a lot of volume, large quantities and large quality. It's fresh, it's relevant, it's appropriate to the audience, it's timely. And this isn't a sales pitch for Haley Marketing, because this is about getting your team involved. This isn't, you may be able to outsource some of it, but this is about getting everyone in your organization involved in content creation, making those videos, finding things they're interested in, tracking the interests and needs of different buyer personas, and then finding stories to share, using interviews as a way to gather content, using even sales calls as a way to learn about questions, and then writing blog posts or making short videos where you answer those questions. The more people in your organization who get involved in creating the content, the better it's going to be for social media, but you're also going to be educating your internal employees. You're going to make them smarter at what they do. You're going to make them better as consultants to your clients, better as advisors to your candidates, which is going to make you a more successful staffing organization. Beg, plead, better yet, automate. So I said Net Social, that's a tool we have. But there are also, you can start with some free tools. Buffer and Deliver It offer basic free accounts, ones we've been using for years to do social sharing. We ended up building Net Social only because when we tried to get to team-based sharing at scale, we couldn't do it with the platforms we were using, so we built our own. But for individual sharing, if you want to do this yourself, go get a Buffer account for free. Go get Deliver It. That's the URL, deliver.it, and start automating some of your sharing. You don't want to do just automated sharing. You want your team to be active directly on social media, but even the automation is better than nothing. Lastly, let's wrap it up. How do we create better content? If you're going to do team-based sharing, you need really good content. So the first thing to do is to spend time in planning. And this is not usually a staffing industry function to plan content. But just like you'd plan sales calls, just like you'd plan recruiting strategies, just like you'd plan how you'd go after a new industry segment or even a new office park in town, you want to plan content. You want to do research, document the questions people are asking you. Create a theme, maybe for each month or each quarter, what you're going to produce content around, or for each audience. Get everybody on the team involved in brainstorming topic ideas. Have a happy hour, and during that happy hour, have some discussion topics that you use the chat function in Zoom and ask questions and just record all the answers. Then somebody needs to create a content calendar outlining what are we focused on. Makes a huge difference when someone has done the heavy lifting to think through what kinds of topics are we going to write about, and then how do we create it. Start leveraging what you already have. If you've got a blog, that blog has a feed. All that content can be automatically fed into Deliver It, into Buffer, into Net Social. If you have a job board, if you have Haley Marketing's job board software, you can get all your jobs fed in, just your featured jobs for an individual recruiter or a specific location or a specific skill discipline. You can have feeds of those things going out to the right channels on social media. If you're using some sort of talent showcase, those who have our software or those who are using some other way to promote talent, skill market talent on your website, you can get a feed of top candidates and make that some of the content that you share. If you have some sort of library of content, a resource center, and that resource center has an RSS feed, that can be fed into your social media. If you're producing a newsletter, most newsletter systems have the ability to get a newsletter as an RSS feed. And everything that's a feed, I keep using that phrase, RSS feed, That feed is a way to get all the content and take it from point A, your blog, your job board, your talent showcase, to point B, your social sharing platform, to make it easy to put all the sharing of this content on autopilot. Getting your team involved. Set a monthly or quarterly goal for the people who work for you. Get one person to review, optimize your post. It's good for quality control, just to have somebody to kind of just make sure there's a consistent voice. Not necessarily every post, but just to spot check what people are doing on their own, or to control what's going into the feeds that people can share. Asking your team to share their expertise. Everybody who works in your organization is a staffing expert, an employment expert, a recruiting specialist. They're a sales expert. The people who are on the front line spend their day answering questions and consulting with people. They're uniquely qualified to create content. You just got to make it easy to capture that content, to capture those little bits of thought leadership in a video, to interview one another. You've got professional interviewers. Let them interview one another on screen. And then also answer those questions for clients and candidates. Start with video, because I think it's easier to talk than it is to write. Record yourself. I use Zoom with nobody else there, and I record myself making videos, sometimes to answer questions for people, sometimes to share information with the team, or record a conversation. Use tools to make the recording for you. Zoom, Video Now. You want to convert your video to text. A service we use, I think it's on the next slide, but I'll say it now, is called Rev. They take our videos, or like this recording of Lunch with Haley, and they'll make a transcription of all the text. It's very inexpensive, and then that we can make blog posts out of that. Curate content from third parties. I use a tool called Feedly. I know there are lots of others that essentially let you look at RSS feeds from third parties to pull content in for you to find things you might want to share. Or to set up Google alerts for companies you're watching, or websites you're watching, or topics you're watching. So that as you see content, and then maybe you have a browser extension that goes with Buffer or Deliver It or NetSocial, you can just tag pieces of content as you see them and say, add them to my feed, add them to my feed, add them to my feed. So there's no extra work. I'm surfing the internet and I'm building my social sharing at the same time. Get help. Maybe it's an intern, maybe it's a freelancer, hiring a full-time content manager, or outsourcing, and probably a mix of all of the above. Each has different abilities. Interns can be great for doing some of the legwork, but they're not going to have the expertise to really necessarily promote your brand the right way, but they may know the most about how to use some of the social channels. Freelancers can be great for producing content if you have the time to manage them. If you have the resources, having someone whose job function is content management, who manages this whole process, makes a lot of sense. And if you don't, you can outsource all of that to have someone who creates the calendar for you, sets it up, figures out the topics, works with you to build the process. Some of the tools we use, I promise these. So video, here's our video tools. Animoto, really easy way to make videos. Even an idiot like me can use Animoto to make a branded video with a very little expertise. Now our creative team can do wonders with Animoto that I can't do, but I can do enough basic stuff to produce a video, to do something, to record it in Zoom, upload it to Animoto. I can add an animated logo that we've already created to the beginning and the end, add some music, and I look like I sort of knew what I was doing. Powtoon, we use that to create explainer videos, those kind of illustrations or cartoonish that teach people things. Videos, it's one we, with our partners from Mamu Media, they brought to us. It's another very easy to use tool to create videos. Then our creative team, they use Adobe Premiere and After Effects to really do more professional level, high quality video. That requires a lot of expertise. And I mentioned our Video Now platform, which is probably the easiest one we have for doing really simple videos to get clients, candidates, internal people to record videos using no more technology than a phone. All right, and that brings us to the end. So my last minute social pitch, but really I wanted to talk about questions. What more can I answer for you about team-based social sharing? I did the question. This was a private question. It was a client who said, "Hey, David, I'd like to have an offline conversation just about what we're doing with you and what more we could be doing." And for any of our clients who are listening in, we would absolutely love that, to do a deeper dive. A lot of what we provide initially may be a very structured service of, "Hey, we're writing so many blog posts a month," but we can now that you understand how we work and now we understand more about you, dive deeper. How do we refine content plans? What more can we do to build on what's what we're doing? How can we better work together? Maybe get more of your team involved to improve the quality, the impact, the quantity of what we're doing with team-based social sharing. All right, how do we motivate and encourage staff who are hesitant to mix their work life and social media? Jamie, the easiest, quickest answer is, would they like to make more money? Because most of the people in the organization are probably paid on some sort of commission, and companies that do this, their people build their personal brands, they sell more, they recruit better, their jobs are easier. But if they're still resistant, it can also be just about sharing what they love and building that personal brand and how it will benefit their career, how it will benefit them short term, long term, how it will help make their jobs easier. And it helps people. When you're sharing content, it's not self-serving. If you really know your audience, you're striving to help somebody else improve their life. And that's a noble thing to do. You're trying to share really good information that makes people's lives better. And so I would probably use the emotional pitch. I would use the rational pitch. And if nothing else, I might make it a requirement for people to share so much or create incentives. If you're using a tool that allows you to have a leaderboard, reward the people who are doing the most and getting the best results. All right, and this seems to be a common thread. I think we had 3 in a row asking about how to get people to share. I will say gamification is another beautiful thing. There are tools that allow you to monitor those leaderboards. Who's sharing? What are they getting in terms of the value of the sharing? It's one of the things when we built NetSocial we took into account is people are competitive naturally. They want to win. So you want to have that ability to have a little bit of that gamification and some of the explicit rewards for doing well. Do you think it's more important for people to be active in jobs groups as opposed to company Facebook business page or as an individual? So the business page, it's really important to monitor people who are talking to you. But again, you're only going to get about 1 to 2% really seeing anything you share from there. So I'd rather share from an individual page. But you mentioned groups. Facebook groups are an awesome place for people who maybe don't want to share from their personal account on Facebook, but they can go to a new group, a jobs group, or a group for people who have a specific interest and become active in the community. Think of that not as a recruiting channel, but as a talent community where I want to be a member. They're people I want to engage with so I understand them better. I know the questions they ask. I know how I can give them help. I can be answering those questions. Oh yeah, and of course, I can get them attracted to the jobs we have. But I would look at individual sharing and group sharing ahead of company pages. Any suggestions for a one-man team? How do you do all this? Yeah, don't try to do everything. Look at your audience. Where are they? Pick the one channel. Is it more likely Facebook? Is it more likely LinkedIn? Is it more likely Instagram? Pick an audience. Who do I really want to reach? Is it a client? Is it a candidate? What are they interested in? And set time. I'm going to set 20 minutes a day to go find some content and share it. I'm going to set an hour a week. I'm going to put this into my schedule so right when I get back from lunch, before I open email, I'm going to spend 15 minutes to share content on social. Make it a process so that it's not overwhelming, but it's part of your schedule. I was listening to the author of the book Atomic Habits. He said, if you want to start a new habit, take an existing habit you already have and tack the new thing on to the end. So let's say you go to lunch at 12 o'clock every day and you're typically back by 12:45. When you get back from lunch, maybe your habit normally is to check email. Well, instead of jumping into that habit, say, I'm going to do a new habit and I'm going to open Facebook as my new habit, and I will commit to no more than 15 minutes to find a piece of content and share it. But start that new habit on the backside of an existing habit. All right, I think we've gotten to most of the questions, and we're about a little bit after the 3 o'clock hour Eastern time, so I want to thank everybody for coming to today's webinar. I want to also let you know we have a bonus Lunch with Haley next week. Coming up is our very own Matt Lozar and Leah Daniels from Appcast, who are going to be digging into some data on job board spend and showing you some simple tactics to help you get more candidates, more placements made without increasing your budget to the job boards. So don't miss that webinar Thursday, August 20th. And the week after that, I'll be back here and talking about our staffing recovery product deals during our product demo for the month. From all of us at Haley Marketing, thank you so much for being part of today's webinar. I hope you took home a few pointers, and I hope we see you at our next Lunch with Haley event.